I walked through the front door with a greasy paper bag of Chinese takeout in my hands. The kind we always got on Fridays. Orange chicken for Sophie, beef lo mein for Mila, and extra egg rolls because Kayla liked them soggy. The smell hit the air as I kicked off my boots, expecting the usual chaos of the girls arguing over the TV or Kayla yelling about homework. Instead, it was quiet, too quiet, like the house was holding its breath. Sophie and Mila were hunched over their phones at the kitchen counter, thumbs flying across screens, not even glancing up when I dropped the bag with a thud. I tried to lighten the mood, cracking a dumb joke about how the delivery guy almost ran me over to get here faster. Nothing. Not a laugh, not a groan, just the hum of the fridge. Then Sophie looked up, her eyes sharp, and said it like she'd been waiting all day to drop a bomb. You're not our real dad. Mom says Grant's more of a father than you ever were. The words punched me square in the chest, knocking the air out of me. I stood there, frozen, the bag crinkling as my grip tightened, waiting for Kayla to jump in, to tell her to stop, to say it wasn't true. But Kayla just sat there at the table, her wine glass halfway to her lips, and smirked. That smirk, it wasn't a laugh or a frown, just this little twist of her mouth that said more than words ever could. It told me she'd been planting this seed for a while, watering it with whispers I never heard, letting it grow until it broke through the surface right here, right now. I looked at her, my wife of 17 years, the woman I'd built this life with, and I didn't recognize her. The girls went back to their phones like nothing happened, like they hadn't just ripped the ground out from under me. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, to ask what the hell Grant had that I didn't. He wasn't the one who stayed up all night when Mila had the flu, or drove Sophie to every dance practice when she swore she'd be the next big thing. He didn't fix the leaky sink, or mow the lawn, or sit through parent-teacher nights. But that smirk, God, that smirk, told me none of that mattered anymore. I set the takeout down, my hands shaking, and walked to the garage. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. The quiet was loud enough. I stood there, staring at the old motorcycle I hadn't touched in years, its chrome dull under a layer of dust, and felt my throat tighten. They didn't want me. Not Sophie, not Mila, not Kayla. I'd been playing a role I thought was mine, but they'd recast me without even telling me the show was over. I could still hear the clink of Kayla's glass hitting the table. That smirk burned into my head like a brand. It wasn't just an insult. It was a wall going up, one I didn't know how to climb. I sat on a stool, the cold concrete under my feet, and wondered how long they'd been rewriting me out of their story. The takeout sat uneaten in the kitchen that night, and I didn't go back in. I couldn't. Not with that smirk waiting for me, telling me I'd already lost something I didn't even know was slipping away. My daughters, my wife, my family, they'd traded me in, and I was the last one to find out. I kept replaying Sophie's voice, the way it didn't waver, the way Mila didn't even flinch. They believed it. And Kayla, with her whine and her silence, she'd made sure they did. I rubbed my hands over my face, trying to push the ache out of my chest, but it stuck there, heavy and sharp. This wasn't just a fight. This was the end of something, and I didn't know what to do with the pieces. I woke up the next morning with a crick in my neck from sleeping on the lumpy couch in the garage, the motorcycle looming in the corner like a silent witness to my collapse. The house was still dark when I shuffled inside, the clock on the microwave blinking 5:47 a.m. Normally, I'd be flipping pancakes by now, the smell of batter pulling Mila out of bed while Sophie groaned about it being too early. I'd have the coffee going for Kayla, strong and black, just how she liked it, and I'd be juggling the carpool schedule in my head, Sophie to school, Mila to her friend's house, then me to the hardware store. But today, I didn't move. I stood there, staring at the empty skillet on the counter, and decided I was done. Sophie's words still echoed in my skull, "You're not our real dad," and Kayla's smirk flashed every time I blinked. If Grant was the big hero now, let him figure out breakfast. Let him deal with Mila's algebra homework or Sophie's TikTok obsession. I wasn't begging for a spot they'd already given away. I grabbed a mug, poured yesterday's cold coffee, and sat at the table, the silence pressing in like a weight. The girls stumbled downstairs later, Mila rubbing her eyes, Sophie already glued to her phone. They stopped when they saw me just sitting there. No food, no rush, no, hurry up, you'll miss the bus. Mila frowned, her voice small. "Where's breakfast?" I sipped my coffee, letting the bitter taste settle. "Ask Grant," I said, calm as anything. Sophie's head snapped up, her mouth twisting like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. Kayla breezed in, hair still wet from the shower, and didn't even glance at me. "You're late," she said to the girls, like I wasn't there. I didn't move. They left without another word, the door slamming behind them, and I stayed put, the coffee going cold in my hands. At work, Ricky noticed something was off. He's a guy I've known for years at the hardware store, a single dad with a daughter Mila's age, always lugging around a thermos of cheap gas station coffee. "You look like hell," he said, leaning on a stack of lumber. I told him everything, Sophie's words, Kayla's smirk, the way it all crashed down over takeout. He shook his head, scratching his beard. "Kids only know what they're fed, man. Sounds like Kayla's been dishing out a load of crap." I nodded, but it didn't make me feel better. He was right, though. Someone had been feeding them this story, and it wasn't me. Later, I called my sister Claire. She's older by 5 years, raised 2 boys alone after her ex took off, and she doesn't mess around with soft words. "Kayla's playing you," she said, her voice crackling through the phone. "She's got some shiny new guy, and she's letting the girls think he's the upgrade. You gonna let her?" I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. Claire sighed. "You're too good for this, you know that?" Maybe she was right, but it didn't change the hole in my chest. Back home, I didn't fix the carpool mess when Sophie texted that she missed her ride. I didn't check Mila's math when she left her notebook open on the counter, red marks all over it. I didn't scroll through their phones to make sure they weren't posting dumb stuff online like I used to. That was my job before, keeping the wheels turning, holding it all together. But if I wasn't dad anymore, why bother? Kayla didn't say a word about it. She came home late, her purse swinging, her phone buzzing with texts she didn't hide. I watched her pour wine, that smirk flickering again, and I felt my hands clench. She wanted me to fight, to yell, to prove I cared. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I went back to the garage, the motorcycle's shadow stretching across the floor, and sat there until the house went quiet. No more playing the part. No more pretending I could fix what they'd already broken. Grant could step up or not. I wasn't holding my breath. The girls didn't need me, Kayla didn't want me, and I wasn't about to chase a title they'd tossed in the trash. I'd spent years building this family, pouring everything into it, and now it was like I'd been erased. Ricky's words stuck with me, kids only know what they're fed. Well, they'd been fed a lie, and I wasn't cooking anymore. The house felt different now, like a place I used to know but didn't belong in anymore. I woke up on that garage couch again, the springs digging into my back, and listened to the quiet. No clatter of cereal bowls, no rush of footsteps, just the hum of the fridge and the faint buzz of a lawnmower down the street. It was Saturday, a day I'd usually spend fixing something, Sophie's bike, Mila's science project, the leaky faucet Kayla complained about. But I didn't get up. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, Sophie's words looping in my head like a song I couldn't shake. "You're not our real dad." Kayla's smirk followed, sharp and cold, cutting deeper every time I pictured it. The silence settled over everything like dust, thick and heavy, and I let it. I didn't care anymore, or at least, I told myself I didn't. Kayla was gone by the time I dragged myself inside, probably off with Grant or whoever else she was texting late at night. Her phone had been lighting up more lately, little pings she didn't bother hiding, and I'd stopped asking who was on the other end. The girls were around, though. Sophie slouched past me in the hallway, her eyes rolling so hard I could almost hear it, like my breathing annoyed her. Mila sat on the couch, her nose in a book, but she didn't say a word, didn't even look up. It was like I'd become a ghost in my own house, drifting through rooms I used to fill. That night, the dishwasher broke. I was in the kitchen grabbing a beer when I heard the gurgle, then the splash of water hitting the floor. Soap suds bubbled out, pooling around the counter, and I just stood there, watching. Sophie poked her head in, frowning. "Aren't you gonna fix it?" she asked, like it was my job, like it had always been my job. Mila peeked around the corner, her eyes wide, waiting. I took a long sip of my beer, the cold bottle sweating in my hand, and shrugged. "Not my problem," I said. "Call Grant." Sophie's mouth dropped open, but she didn't argue. Mila blinked, then disappeared. They stood there, staring at the mess, like they thought I'd cave if they waited long enough. I didn't. I grabbed my beer and walked upstairs, leaving the water to spread. If Grant was the new man of the house, he could unclog it, or pay someone to. I wasn't lifting a finger. Later, I heard them muttering, the slosh of towels as they tried to clean it up themselves. Kayla came home around midnight, her heels clicking on the tile, and I heard her snap at them about the mess. I stayed in bed, the door cracked, listening to her blame them instead of asking why I hadn't stepped in. She didn't come to me. She didn't care. I rolled over, the mattress creaking, and thought about Mila's old Father's Day card. She'd made it years ago, when she was maybe 8, all glitter and crooked letters. Best bonus dad ever. I'd stuck it on the fridge with a magnet, proud as anything, even though I wasn't their bio dad. It stayed there for years, fading a little but still bright enough to make me smile. Last week, I'd noticed it was gone. I found it crumpled in the trash, buried under coffee grounds and takeout boxes. Kayla must have thrown it out, probably when she was clearing space for her wine bottles. I didn't fish it out. What was the point? They didn't mean it anymore. Not Mila, not Sophie, not Kayla. The house kept getting quieter after that. Sophie stopped asking me for rides. Mila stopped leaving her homework out for me to check. Kayla barely looked at me, her nights stretching longer, her phone buzzing louder. I didn't fight it. I didn't beg. I just let it happen. The dishwasher stayed broken for days, a soggy reminder of what I wasn't doing anymore. At work, Ricky asked how things were going, and I just shrugged. They're figuring it out, I said. He clapped me on the shoulder, his calloused hand heavy. Good. Let him. Claire called again, her voice sharp through the line. You're not their maid, you know. Kayla's got some nerve, letting this go on. I didn't argue. She was right, but it didn't fix the ache. I'd spent years being the dad. Stepdad, bonus dad, whatever they called it, and now I was nothing. The silence wasn't just in the house. It was in me, too. I stopped trying to fill it. I stopped caring if they noticed. If they wanted Grant, they could have him. I wasn't chasing a family that didn't want me back. The days started blending together, a gray haze of quiet that I didn't fight anymore. I'd wake up in the garage, the cold seeping through the couch, and drag myself to work at the hardware store, where the hum of saws and the clatter of nails kept my head from spinning too much. At home, it was different. Kayla was out more, her car gone before I got back, her perfume lingering like a ghost. The girls were there, though, moving around me like I was furniture, a chair you don't sit on, just something in the way. I'd hear Sophie's music blasting through her door, Mila's TV shows droning in the living room, but they didn't talk to me. Not really. And I didn't talk to them. Grant was the new star, I guess. Sophie bragged about the sneakers he sent her, bright red ones that cost more than my weekly paycheck, and Mila showed off a phone case he'd mailed, all glittery and new. But he wasn't here. I'd see his selfies pop up on their phones when they left them lying around, him in some hotel room, grinning with a beer, or posing by a pool somewhere warm. He was a postcard dad, dropping gifts and promises, but I didn't see him fixing the dishwasher or driving them to school. That stuff didn't matter to them, though not yet. One night, Sophie came home late, her face streaked with tears. I was in the kitchen, heating up leftover pizza, when the door banged open. She stormed past me, her hoodie soaked from the rain, and I heard her sob before she slammed her bedroom door. I stood there, the microwave beeping, and waited. She didn't come back out. I didn't knock. I knew what it was, some boy probably. She'd been texting nonstop about this guy from school, all giggles and secrets, but now it was over. She didn't call Grant for comfort, didn't call Kayla either. She just locked herself away. I ate my pizza alone, the crust going cold, and wondered if she'd have come to me before all this. Probably. I used to be the one she'd vent to, sprawled on the couch while I listened to her ramble about drama I didn't understand. Not anymore. Then there was Mila. Her science project was due, some volcano thing she'd been excited about for weeks. I'd always helped her with that stuff, cutting poster board, mixing baking soda and vinegar, making sure it didn't look like a total mess. This time, she did it alone. I saw the aftermath in the dining room. Crumpled paper, a lopsided cone, red dye staining the table. She got a C-, her report card left out like she wanted me to see. I didn't say anything. I didn't offer to fix it. If Grant was her real dad, he could have stepped up, but he didn't. He was too busy sending selfies from wherever he was, too busy being the fun guy. I saw it all. The tears, the failing grade, the way they fumbled without me, and I kept my mouth shut. It wasn't my job anymore. Kayla's friend Trina came over one afternoon, her loud laugh filling the house while I tinkered in the garage. She's a hairdresser, always gossiping, and I've never liked her much. I heard her through the cracked window, her voice carrying over the clink of wine glasses. "You're lucky he's still here," she said to Kayla. "Most men would have walked by now." Kayla laughed, short and sharp, like it was a joke. I stopped turning the wrench, my hands greasy, and listened. Trina wasn't wrong. I could have left, packed a bag, crashed at Ricky's, started over. But I didn't. Not yet. I don't know why. Maybe it was the house, the years I'd poured into it, or maybe it was the girls, even if they didn't want me. I went back to the motorcycle, tightening bolts I'd already tightened, and let Trina's words sit there. Lucky. Was I? At work, Ricky kept checking on me, his thermos steaming as he leaned on the counter. They'll figure it out, he said, like it was a promise. Kids always do. I nodded, but I wasn't sure. Sophie's tears, Mila's sea dash. They were cracks in this perfect little fantasy Kayla had built around Grant. He wasn't here for the hard stuff, and they were starting to see it. But I didn't step in. I didn't play hero. I'd spent years being the guy who fixed everything: broken bikes, broken hearts, broken grades, and they'd thrown it back in my face. So I watched, quiet, from the edges. The pizza went cold that night, the science project stayed a mess, and Sophie's sobs faded behind her door. Grant's sneakers sat by the stairs, shiny and untouched. I didn't say a word. Let them figure it out. I was done carrying it all. The air in the house felt thicker now, like it was holding on to every word we didn't say. I'd stopped sleeping in the garage, back in the bedroom with Kayla, but it didn't feel like ours anymore. Her side was a tangle of blankets, mine stiff and untouched. She didn't care that I was there, didn't ask why I'd come back upstairs. She just kept living her life, her phone buzzing, her nights stretching late. I'd hear the girls moving around in the mornings, their voices low, like they were testing the silence I'd built around myself. One afternoon, Mila caught me off guard. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee, when she shuffled in, her soccer bag slung over her shoulder. She looked at me, her eyes big and unsure, and asked, "Can you drive me to practice?" Her voice was small, like she wasn't sure I'd answer. I set the mug down, the steam curling up, and looked at her. She was still my Mila, messy ponytail, chipped nail polish, but she wasn't the kid who'd climb into my lap anymore. I thought about Sophie's words, Kayla's smirk, the way they'd rewritten me out of their story. "Ask your real dad," I said, my voice flat, not mean, just empty. She froze, her bag slipping a little, her mouth opening like she wanted to argue. She didn't. She just stood there, then turned and walked out. I heard the front door click shut, and I stayed where I was, the coffee going cold. Sophie was next. She stormed in later that day, her face red, her hair wild from the wind. "Why are you being such a jerk?" she snapped, her hands on her hips. I was sitting at the table, flipping through a hardware catalog I wasn't really reading. I looked up at her, her anger filling the room, and didn't flinch. "You told me I wasn't your father," I said, slow and steady. "I'm respecting that." Her eyes widened, then narrowed, like she couldn't believe I'd throw it back at her. She huffed, ready to fire something else, but I didn't give her the chance. I held her gaze, long and hard, letting her see I wasn't budging. She spun around and stomped off, her door slamming so loud the windows rattled. Kayla walked in right after, her wine glass already in hand, her lips twitching like she'd heard it all. "You're so dramatic," she said, her voice light, like this was a game. She leaned against the counter, sipping her drink, waiting for me to explode. I didn't. I just looked at her, that smirk flickering again, and felt something snap inside me. Not anger, not pain, but freedom. It hit me like a wave, cold and clear. I didn't have to do this anymore. I didn't have to fight for a place they didn't want me in. I stood up, the chair scraping the floor, and walked past her. She laughed under her breath, a little huff, but I didn't turn back. I went to the garage, the motorcycle gleaming under the light I'd fixed last week, and sat there, the quiet wrapping around me like a blanket. That moment stayed with me. Mila's frozen face, Sophie's anger, Kayla's laugh, they all piled up, but they didn't weigh me down anymore. I'd been carrying this family for years, every late night, every fixed mess, every quiet sacrifice, and they'd tossed it aside like it meant nothing. Grant could have it, the title, the glory, the shiny gifts. I wasn't begging for scraps. At work the next day, Ricky saw it in me. "You're different," he said, hammering a nail into a plank. "Lighter." I shrugged, stacking paint cans. "Maybe." He grinned, like he knew. Claire called that night, her voice sharp as ever. "You're finally growing a spine," she said. "About time." I didn't argue. She was right. I'd been bending over backwards, trying to be the dad they needed, and they'd kicked me for it. Now, I was standing straight. The house kept moving without me. Mila found a ride to practice, probably with a friend's mom. Sophie didn't ask for anything else. just glared when we passed in the hall. Kayla kept smirking, kept texting, kept leaving. I didn't fill the gaps. I didn't fix the sink when it dripped again, didn't mow the lawn when it got shaggy. I went to work, came home, tinkered with the motorcycle. The freedom grew, slow but steady, like a plant pushing through concrete. I wasn't mad anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was just done. They'd made their choice, and I was making mine. Let Grant play the hero. I'd see how long it lasted. The house started showing the cracks I'd stopped patching. I'd always been the one to keep it running. Oil changes for the car, light bulbs swapped out, laundry folded when Kayla forgot. Now, I didn't touch any of it. I'd come home from the hardware store, my hands still smelling of sawdust, and see the little messes piling up. Dishes in the sink, trash overflowing, a light flickering in the hall. The girls noticed first. Sophie missed her college prep class one Saturday because Kayla forgot to drive her. Usually, I'd have been the one checking the schedule, making sure she got there. She came home late, her face tight, and lingered in the garage doorway while I worked on the motorcycle. I was tightening a chain, the clank of metal filling the space, and I saw her out of the corner of my eye, shifting her weight like she wanted to say something. She didn't. She just stood there, then left. Mila was quieter about it. Her soccer uniform shrank in the dryer. Kayla tossed it in without checking, and Mila ended up with a shirt that barely fit. She wore it anyway, tugging at the hem, and didn't ask me to fix it like I would have before. I saw her leave her report card on the table one night. AB, circled in red, like she was dropping a hint. I didn't pick it up. I didn't ask how school was going. I sipped my beer and let it sit there, the paper curling at the edges. They were starting to feel it, me not being there. Not just the rides or the fixes, but the way I used to hover, checking in, keeping things steady. Now, I was a shadow, moving through the house without a sound. Kayla didn't notice at first, too busy with her late nights and her phone. She'd breeze in, her heels clicking, and pour her wine like nothing had changed. But the girls did. Sophie lingered more, her footsteps slow past the garage, her eyes flicking to me when she thought I wasn't looking. Mila left little signs. The report card, a half-finished drawing of a horse on the counter, stuff she used to show me with a grin. I didn't bite. I'd spent years jumping at every chance to be their dad, every late-night talk, every patched-up mistake, and they'd thrown it back at me with, "You're not our real dad." So I stayed out of it. Let Grant step up or not. I wasn't holding my breath. One night, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. Sophie's voice was sharp, cutting through the hum of the TV. "Why didn't you tell me about the class? I needed to go." Kayla snapped back. "You're 16. Figure it out." Mila chimed in, softer, "The uniform's ruined, Mom." I looked stupid at practice. Kayla laughed, that short, mean sound I'd come to hate. "Then wash it right next time." I was upstairs, lying on the bed, the door cracked, and I didn't move. They were mad, floundering, and I let them. It wasn't my mess to clean up anymore. At work, Ricky saw me tinkering with a busted drill, my hands steady, and smirked. "You're letting him sink, huh?" he said. I nodded, wiping grease on my jeans. "They wanted it this way." He clapped me on the back. "Tough love, man. They'll get it eventually." Maybe he was right. Claire thought so too. She called while I was eating cold leftovers in the garage, the phone wedged against my shoulder. "They're spoiled," she said, her voice cutting through the line. "You did too much, and now they're lost without you." "Good. Let them figure it out." I didn't argue. She'd raised her boys with a firm hand, no coddling, and they turned out fine. Me, I'd been softer, always there, always fixing. Now I wasn't, and the girls were stumbling. Sophie kept hovering, her shadow stretching across the garage floor some nights. I'd hear her pause, like she was working up the nerve, but she never spoke. Mila's signs got bolder, a note on my toolbox once, just "hey," in her loopy handwriting. I left it there, unread past that first word. I wasn't mad at them, not really. I just wasn't theirs anymore. Kayla still didn't care, her life spinning on without a hitch. She'd come home, kick off her shoes, and ignore the chaos, the dirty dishes, the shrunk uniform, the missed classes. Grant wasn't around to fix it either, just sending his selfies and his gifts. The motorcycle was coming along, though. I'd polished the chrome, tuned the engine, and it purred now when I started it. It was mine, something they couldn't take away. The girls noticed that too, Sophie's eyes lingering on it, Mila staring when I revved it once. They were waking up, slow and clumsy, to what they'd lost. I didn't rush to meet them halfway. The The tension in the house was like a wire pulled tight, ready to snap. I'd stopped filling the gaps, and it was starting to show. Sophie's missed classes, Mila's shrunk uniform, the dishwasher still leaking whenever someone dared to run it. Kayla didn't like it, though. She'd been fine with me stepping back at first, smirking like it was some kind of win, but now it was getting under her skin. One night, she cornered me in the kitchen. I was grabbing a beer from the fridge, the cold glass sweating in my hand. When she blocked the doorway, her arms crossed, her eyes narrow. "This little pity party of yours, it's pathetic," she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the hum of the house. She was in her work clothes still, a blazer and skirt, her hair pulled back tight like she meant business. I shut the fridge door, slow and deliberate, and turned to face her. She wanted a fight. I can see it in the way she stood, the way her lips twitched like that smirk was itching to come back. I didn't give it to her. "This isn't a party," I said, keeping my voice calm, steady, like I was talking about the weather. "This is me doing what you all asked, staying out of your way." Her eyes flashed, and for a second, I thought she'd yell. She didn't. She just stared at me, her jaw tight, like she was chewing on something she couldn't spit out. I took a sip of my beer, the bitter taste grounding me, and waited. She shifted, her heels clicking on the tile. "You're heartless," she said finally, throwing the word like a stone. It didn't land. I set the bottle down, the clink loud in the quiet, and looked her straight in the eye. "You told our kids another man was more of a father than me," I said, each word slow, heavy. "You don't get to call me heartless after that." Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. That smirk was gone, wiped clean, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't have a comeback. I didn't wait for one. I brushed past her, my shoulder grazing hers, and walked out. Not out of the house, just the argument. I went to the garage, the motorcycle waiting like an old friend, and sat on the stool, the beer still in my hand. She didn't follow. I heard her heels click away, then the TV flick on, loud and fake cheerful. She'd lost control, and she knew it. The girls were watching too, Sophie from her room, Mila from the couch. They'd heard it, I was sure. The house wasn't big enough to hide a fight like that, even if it was quiet. I didn't care. Let them hear. Let them think about it. I'd spent years keeping the peace, smoothing over Kayla's sharp edges, picking up the slack when she dropped it. Now, I wasn't, and she didn't know what to do with me. At work the next day, Ricky grinned when I told him. "You shut her down cold," he said, tossing a bag of screws onto the counter. "She's not used to you pushing back." He was right. Kayla had always run the show, her moods, her rules, her little digs I'd let slide. Not anymore. Claire called later, laughing when I ran it by her. "She's scrambling," she said, her voice crackling through the phone. "You're not her doormat anymore, and she hates it." I didn't laugh, but I felt it, a little lift, like the weight was shifting. Kayla wanted me to cave, to beg, to go back to being the guy who fixed everything. I wouldn't. The girls were still fumbling. Sophie's lingering got longer. She'd hover by the garage, her phone in her hand, like she was waiting for me to call her over. I didn't. Mila left another note, this one on the kitchen table. "Can we talk?" I saw it when I grabbed my coffee, the paper crumpled like she'd second-guessed it. I left it there, untouched. They were feeling the pull, the empty space where I used to be, but I wasn't jumping back in. Kayla tried harder after that night. She'd snap at the girls more, her voice loud through the walls, about the dishes, the laundry, the mess I wasn't cleaning up. She'd glare at me when we passed, like I was the problem. I didn't flinch. I'd go to work, come home, tinker with the motorcycle. It was almost done now, the engine smooth, the paint gleaming. It was mine, something she couldn't touch. She'd lost her grip, and I wasn't giving it back. The wire was still tight, but I wasn't the one about to break. The air in the house shifted again, heavier this time, like a storm was brewing, and we were all just waiting for it to hit. I'd been keeping my distance, sticking to the garage or the edges of their lives, letting the cracks widen without stepping in. But that night, Sophie broke the quiet. I was in the kitchen, rinsing a plate. Old habit, not because I was cleaning up for them. When she came in, her face red and wet with tears. She didn't storm past like usual. She stopped, her hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, and looked at me like she was lost. "He blew me off," she said, her voice cracking. I set the plate down, water dripping onto the counter, and waited. She didn't need to say who, Grant. I'd heard her talking about some dinner he'd promised, some big night where he'd swoop in and play the hero. He canceled, she went on, wiping her nose with her sleeve. said he had real responsibilities. Her voice shook, mocking his words, and then she broke, a sob ripping out of her. I stood there, the sink still running, and watched her crumble. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said." It was quiet, almost lost in the sound of the water, but I heard it. The apology hung there, raw and real, and for a second, I felt the old pull, the dad in me wanting to hug her, wipe her tears, tell her it was okay. I didn't. I turned off the faucet, the silence rushing in, and looked her in the eyes. "Words matter, Sophie," I said, my voice steady, not cold, just true. "I wasn't pretending to be your dad all these years." Her face twisted, more tears spilling out, and she nodded, like she got it. I didn't move. She stood there a moment longer, then turned and ran upstairs, her sobs echoing down the hall. I didn't follow. I walked away, back to the garage, the plate still wet on the counter. That was the breaking point, not for me, but for her. She'd seen Grant for what he was, a guy who sent sneakers and selfies but didn't show up when it counted. I'd always shown up, every recital, every late-night drive, every time she needed me, and she'd thrown it away. Now she was sorry, and I let her feel it. The next day, Ricky invited me to his daughter's birthday party. I almost said no, too tired, too raw, but he wouldn't let it go. "Come on, man, you need this," he said, tossing me a rag at work. So I went. It was loud, messy, full of kids running around with cake on their faces, and for the first time in months, I laughed. Ricky's girl, Ellie, turned 10, and she hugged me when I handed her a little toolbox I'd picked up, nothing fancy, just something to tinker with. "Thanks, Uncle Mike," she said, grinning, and it hit me how easy it was to be wanted somewhere else. I stayed late, helping Ricky clean up, the sound of laughter still in my ears when I got home. The house was dark, Sophie's door shut tight. I didn't check on her. She'd come to me, and I'd said what I needed to. At work, Ricky kept grinning. "Told you it'd do you good," he said, stacking lumber. I nodded, feeling lighter, like the garage wasn't the only place I could breathe anymore. Claire called too, her voice sharp but warm. "Sophie's waking up," she said. "She's figuring out who's real. Don't let her off easy." I wouldn't. I'd heard the sorry, seen the tears, but it wasn't enough, not yet. She'd hurt me, deep, and I wasn't rushing to patch it up. Mila was watching too. I caught her staring the next morning, her cereal spoon halfway to her mouth, like she was piecing it together. She didn't say anything, but I saw it, the way her eyes followed me, the way she stayed quiet. Kayla didn't notice, or didn't care. She came home late again, her phone buzzing, her smirk gone but her attitude still sharp. "You're turning them against me," she said once, her voice low. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. They were turning on their own, seeing the truth without me saying a word. The motorcycle hummed when I started it that night, the engine smooth and strong. I didn't ride it, just sat there, feeling the vibration, knowing it was ready when I was. Sophie's tears, Ricky's party, Mila's stare, they were pieces moving, shifting, but I wasn't forcing them. I'd wait. They'd figure it out, or they wouldn't. I wasn't breaking anymore. The house felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to give. I'd been keeping my distance, letting the girls and Kayla stumble through the mess they'd made, and it was starting to show. One night, Kayla tried to pull it all back together. I came home from the hardware store, my hands still rough from hauling lumber, and smelled something cooking, roast chicken, potatoes, the kind of meal she hadn't made in months. The table was set, plates out, the girls already sitting there, quiet and stiff. Sophie's eyes were red, like she'd been crying again, and Mila kept her head down, poking at her food. Kayla stood by the stove, stirring gravy, her back to me. "Dinner's ready," she said, her voice too bright, like she was trying to sell me something. I stopped in the doorway, my boots still on, and looked at them. It was a scene from years ago, family dinner, everyone together, but it didn't fit anymore. I didn't sit. I stayed standing, my arms crossed, the smell of chicken heavy in the air. Kayla turned, her smile tight, and nodded at the empty chair. "Come on, join us," she said, like it was normal, like the last few months hadn't happened. The girls looked up, Sophie biting her lip, Mila's eyes flicking to me then away. I didn't move. "What's this?" I asked, my voice low steady. Kayla's smile faltered, but she kept it up. "Just dinner. We need to eat together, don't we?" It was a lie, and we all knew it. This wasn't about food, it was about control, about resetting the story she'd lost hold of. I took a step forward, my boots loud on the tile, and looked at them all, Kayla with her fake cheer, Sophie with her guilt, Mila with her silence. I didn't stop being your father, I said, my words slow, cutting through the quiet. You stopped treating me like one. That's on you. All of you. The room went still. Sophie's fork clattered against her plate, Mila's head snapped up, and Kayla's smile dropped clean off. I didn't yell, didn't raise my voice, just let it sit there, heavy and true. Sophie spoke first, her voice small. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean it. Mila nodded, her eyes wet. Me too. I was wrong. Kayla didn't say anything, just gripped the counter, her knuckles white. They were real apologies, not excuses, not tears to dodge the blame. I listened, my chest tight, and then I said what I'd been holding on to. I'm not here to be convenient, I told them. You want a dad? Earn him back. I turned and walked out, the chicken still steaming on the table, their eyes burning into my back. I went to the garage, the motorcycle gleaming under the light, and sat there, the quiet wrapping around me. They'd said sorry, and I'd heard it, but it wasn't a switch I could flip. I'd spent years pouring everything into them. Every late night, every fixed mess, every quiet moment, and they'd tossed it aside for Grant's shiny promises. Now they wanted me back, and I wasn't running to meet them. At work, Ricky saw the shift. They're cracking, huh? He said, tossing me a hammer. I nodded, driving a nail into a plank. They're trying. He grinned. Make him work for it. Claire was tougher when I told her. They don't get a free pass, she said, her voice sharp through the phone. You're worth more than that. She was right. I wasn't a doormat, not anymore. The girls started moving after that night. Sophie washed the dishes without being asked, her hands slow in the sink. Mila left her drawing on the counter again, a horse with my name scribbled next to it. Small steps, clumsy, like they were testing the water. Kayla didn't join in. She stayed quiet, her phone still buzzing, her nights still long. I heard her muttering to Trina once, her voice low through the window. He's making it harder than it needs to be. Trina laughed. Maybe you made it too easy to lose him. I didn't care what she thought. She'd built this mess, her and Grant, and now it was crumbling. The motorcycle was ready, its engine purring when I tested it. I didn't ride it yet, just let it sit, a promise to myself. The girls' apologies echoed in my head, real but not enough. I'd wait. They'd have to show me, not just say it. The house wasn't fixed, not yet, but it wasn't my job to glue it back together. They'd figure it out, or they wouldn't. I was done carrying it alone. Weeks passed after that dinner, and the house started to feel less like a battlefield. I didn't rush back into anything, didn't start making breakfast again, didn't fix the dishwasher or check their homework. I kept my distance, working at the hardware store, tinkering with the motorcycle, letting them sit with what I'd said, earn him back. It wasn't easy for them, I could tell. Sophie and Mila were trying, though, in their own messy ways. Sophie took over chores without a word, vacuuming the living room, scrubbing the counters, even mowing the lawn once, her hair tied back, sweat on her face. She didn't ask for praise, didn't look at me when she did it, but I saw. Mila was quieter, leaving little things around. A note in the garage one day, slipped under my toolbox. I miss you. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Dad. Her handwriting was shaky, like she'd written it fast, afraid to take too long. I read it, folded it, and tucked it into my pocket. I didn't say anything back. Not yet. They weren't expecting consequences, I realized. They thought sorry would fix it, that I'd snap back into place like nothing happened. But love isn't a switch, and neither was I. I'd spent years being their dad, stepdad, bonus dad, whatever, and they'd ripped that away. Now they were learning it wasn't so easy to get back. Kayla was different. She didn't apologize, didn't try. She'd come home late, her phone still buzzing, her eyes avoiding mine. Grant wasn't around much. I heard her on the phone with him once, her voice sharp. You said you'd be here. He wasn't sticking, and she was starting to see it. The selfies stopped showing up on the girls' phones, the sneakers and glittery gifts dried up. Sophie didn't talk about him anymore, and Mila threw that phone case in the trash one day. I saw it sticking out, cracked and faded. Kayla's smirk was gone, replaced by something tighter, like she was holding on to a thread that was fraying fast. I didn't care. She built this, and I wasn't bailing her out. The motorcycle was finished now, its chrome shining, its engine smooth as silk. I'd spent nights on it, polishing every inch, tuning it until it roared just right. One afternoon, Mila came out to the garage while I was wiping it down. She stood there, her hands in her pockets, watching me. It's cool, she said, her voice soft. I nodded, running the rag over the handlebars. Yeah. She shifted, then asked, Can you teach me to ride it? Someday. I looked at her, her eyes big and hopeful, and felt something loosen in my chest. Maybe, I said. She smiled, small but real, and walked back inside. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was a start. Sophie kept going too. She'd sit in the kitchen sometimes, doing homework where I could see, like she wanted me to notice. One night she asked, "Can you check this?" holding out a math sheet. I took it, scanned the numbers, and pointed out 2 mistakes. "Fix those," I said, handing it back. She nodded, no arguing, and went to work. It wasn't like before, not yet, but it was something. At work, Ricky saw the change. "They're coming around," he said, leaning on a stack of plywood. "Told you they would." I shrugged, stacking screws. "We'll see." Claire was blunter when I called her. "They're growing up," she said. "About damn time. Don't make it too easy." I wouldn't. They were trying, but it was on them to keep going. I wasn't rushing in to fix it all, not the house, not the family, not us. Kayla started staying home more, her nights shorter, her phone quieter. She'd watch me sometimes, her face unreadable, like she was waiting for me to break the ice. I didn't. She'd have to figure out her own way back, if she even wanted to. The girls didn't push, didn't beg. They just kept showing up, Sophie with her chores, Mila with her notes, her quiet questions. It wasn't perfect, wasn't fixed, but it was moving. One evening, I took the motorcycle out. Just a short ride, the wind cutting through me, the engine rumbling under my hands. When I got back, Mila was waiting by the garage, her eyes bright. "That was awesome," she said. I smiled, just a little. "Yeah, it was." She lingered, then went inside. I stood there, the bike cooling beside me, and felt the shift. It wasn't over, not the hurt, not the work, but it was starting again. Maybe,